Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to talk about one of the most important Cuban defeats during the Angola War, the Battle of Bridge 14. The Battle of Bridge 14, fought in early December 1975 during the Angolan Civil War, was a pivotal confrontation between South African forces, SAD, and Angolan and Cuban troops supporting the FAPLA, People's Armed Forces of Liberation of Angola. In the wake of their defeat at Ibo, South African Task Force Zulu focused its efforts on securing the main road axis leading from Waku-Kungo to Kwibala. This became a central objective of Operation Savannah, as the South Africans aimed to break through FAPLA and Cuban defenses along this route. The Cuban forces in the area were reinforced with infantry, artillery, and anti-tank weaponry. The task force that opposed the South Africans at Bridge 14 included a significant number of Cuban and Angolan artillery pieces, including BM-21 multiple rocket launchers, 120mm mortars, ZS-3 anti-tank guns, and ZPU-4 anti-aircraft guns. The Cuban artillery, in particular, was a key component of the defensive effort. The South African battle groups Bravo and Foxbat deployed reconnaissance patrols towards the high ground north of Bridge 14, known as Top Hat. After several skirmishes, the South Africans established a forward observation post atop Top Hat, which provided critical intelligence and targeting information for their artillery. The Cuban and FAPLA positions on the northern bank of the Nhia River faced increasing pressure as the South Africans, with their artillery's precision and aggressive positioning, inflicted heavy casualties. Cuban artillery, despite its longer range, struggled to counter the South African advantage in coordination and mobility. The artillery duel between the two sides saw the South Africans gaining the upper hand. South African artillery was able to use its forward position at Top Hat to devastating effect, while the Cuban BM-21s and other artillery units were frequently targeted by counter-battery fire. Cuban and Angolan forces faced mounting casualties, and on the 9th of December, a FAPLA company near the bridge was forced to withdraw under intense South African artillery fire. Cuban gunners, despite efforts to reposition, could not halt the South African barrage. By the 10th of December, South African engineers were able to clear mines from the northern bank of the Nhia River and repair Bridge 14, which had been rendered impassable by the Cuban and Angolan forces. On the morning of the 12th of December, after extensive artillery preparation, South African forces launched a crossing of Bridge 14 with 12 Eland armored cars and infantry. The crossing was supported by artillery fire, which neutralized FAPLA and Cuban positions. With FAPLA troops in disarray, and Cuban commanders attempting to regroup, South African forces pushed forward, inflicting heavy casualties. At one point, South African forces mistakenly destroyed a truck carrying Cuban troops, further demoralizing the defenders. The Cubans sent reinforcements, including a Cuban tank company and additional FAPLA troops, but these forces were too late to halt the South African momentum. The South Africans continued to press forward, overwhelming the defenders and causing them to retreat. By the 12th of December, Cuban and Angolan defenses were in full retreat. South African forces quickly consolidated their position and continued their advance, with artillery and Eland armored cars outflanking the retreating enemy. The battle saw heavy casualties on the Cuban and Angolan sides. The South Africans claimed to have killed around 400 enemy troops, many of them Cuban, and captured significant amounts of equipment, including 5 BM-21 launchers, ZS-3 anti-tank guns, and a variety of mortars. From the Cuban perspective, the Battle of Bridge 14 was a significant defeat. Despite the strength of their artillery and initial defensive positions, the Cuban forces were unable to prevent the South African breakthrough. Although they fought bravely, the loss at Bridge 14 showed the difficulty of fighting against a highly mobile and well-coordinated enemy. Thanks for watching our video. Subscribe to our channel to know more about the Angola War.